pendule fait tic-tac, tic-tic. Les oiseaux du lac pic-pac, pic-pic. Glou, glou, glou font tous les dindons. Et la jolie cloche ding-ding-dong. Mais boum, quand notre cœur fait boum, tout avec lui dit boum.
Well, I kind of feel like I was always in the restaurant business. Growing up in the restaurant, from the time of as long as I remember, I was in a restaurant. I hear stories of things that I don't remember about me picking up my father when I was 3 in a blue jumpsuit running around a restaurant. I remember going to a different restaurant when I was 4 or 5, and there was a huge fountain right outside the restaurant, and invariably I would take off all my clothes and jump in the fountain. I remember running through the bakery at the Overnight here with my little brother, taking balls of dough and making smaller balls of dough and throwing them at him. And I remember when we opened Aioli and did a lot of work in the garden and watched the trees plant and watched Sherman do his magic for all the interiors. And I remember learning very early on that if I put some of this wine away, that they would hand me a few dollars. And I think it kind of went from there. I think I was on payroll at 14, even at the university, and I loved academics quite a lot. I enjoyed my studies very much. I almost wish I had the time for more academic discovery, but when I finished the university, I didn't quite know what I was doing moving forward. And when I decided to move back to Sacramento, invariably the morning after I moved back, I was running a restaurant. I enjoy this work tremendously. It's very rewarding. It's very satisfying. It's very stressful. The beauty of working in a restaurant at the capacity that I do is that there isn't one thing that I do. It's a little bit of everything. So there's always a challenge, there's always a problem to be solved, and it can be a problem that is working with my hands. It can be a conceptual issue, it can be a personal issue, and so I feel that all of my faculties get stimulated by working in a restaurant, whether I'm doing plumbing, whether I'm dealing with an emotional staff, whether I'm dealing with an upset client or a tremendously happy client. I don't believe that there's any other line of work that I could find myself in where all of my faculties will be stimulated, all of my skills will be utilized at the level that what a restaurant provides. Well, I feel like I could open any concept that I really stand behind. The brasserie began as a partnership between my father and our friend Christophe Cornet, the Bordelais French chef, who's our acting executive chef right now. And over years of them conceptualizing this restaurant, they started getting serious about it. So they engaged me to start doing the groundwork, and I did everything that's necessary to build a restaurant. We scouted locations, we designed the restaurant, we found a contractor, we permitted the process, and eventually their partnership fell apart. Conceptually working on a brasserie as our mode of doing a French restaurant, it's, in my opinion, the perfect concept of a restaurant in our city. Sacramento lends very well to a regular style restaurant, and that's what a brasserie is. It's a long menu. It's a regular menu. It's one that is not a small mom and pop, but not a fancy 10-course tasting restaurant. It is homey, it is comforting, and it spotlights the local cuisine. Building a brasserie like this in the location that we chose for it is almost the ideal of what a regular restaurant can be. Building a brasserie with all the French fixins on a grand boulevard right in the heart of downtown Sacramento. It's like it was meant to be completely. Well, opening kind of the 1.5 locations that encompass this, it was extremely challenging. Doing 2 projects at once when any individual project needs all of the attention that you could possibly give to it certainly makes anxiety abound. I mean, anxiety, lack of sleep, always thinking about the place, what needs to be done to improve, what needs to be done to make the place that we already built the place that it needs to be. What got me through? Just not stopping. When I'm working with somebody, if I'm working with somebody in a situation where they get overwhelmed, I tell them to take a breath. Say, take a breath. Right now, you cannot think about everything that you need to do. So what you can do is turn into a reactionary animal. You can say, I know what I need to do right now, and I know what I need to do next. And whenever I have somebody I see on my staff that's overwhelmed in that fashion, like, hey, for some reason 50 people just showed up. So let's do this, and then we'll do the next thing, and then we'll do the next thing, and then we'll do the next thing. And for the first at least 2.5 years, we're now 3.5 years into being open, I have done that, and I've done that for extremely long hours every single day. Until Sunday hits and I lie on my couch. Well, that's kind of a tough question that we could go on for hours and hours. French cuisine aesthetic is it's too large. There are too many different French cuisines. We can talk about Nouvelle cuisine, we can talk about old classic cuisine, we can talk about Lyonnaise or Parisian or Alsatian cuisines. The beauty of French cuisine, and I think the reason why, in a general sense, it has become the basis of most modern cooking, is that the technique is rooted in basic methodology. I have these sauces. I have a mother sauce, and it is made this way. Now, with this mother sauce, I can make 15 other sauces. The sheer fact of the matter is there's only one way to make that base, and implementing the methodology and the discipline to making that exactly right every time is the beauty of French cooking. Using that methodology and having that perfection and technique allows you to have the basis of something that you're very comfortable with, that will be perfectly consistent, and then give you the ability to play with it in infinite varieties. And other than the fact that it might take a lot of time and effort to implement any of these methodologies or techniques, once it's done correctly, it can allow you to expound using any of the ingredients or any of the moments or any of the inspirations that you have on hand. Okay, so again with French aesthetic, again there's too many myriads of French aesthetics. I really would love to think of that base technique of making a mother sauce, maybe the base aesthetic of Belle Epoque, French thinking, the custom chandeliers, the pressed tin, the painted concrete tile floor as sort of a base, because I feel like the aesthetic of 1910s and 1920s French is one that you feel when you travel in Paris or any large French city, and it is one that lends well to, hey, we're that brasserie on the boulevard. Having that perspective as sort of the basis of we're playing with that concept and those colors, but taking it and giving it sort of a modern line finish, and playing with shapes and sounds, whether it was all of the woodwork that we did here or whether it was all of the rounded edges that we did in the ceiling. You take the idea of that Belle Epoque and kind of twist it into a modern fashion where instead of having everything be soft lines, you have a soft aesthetic that has been framed by the hard lines and the brightness that this restaurant was built to express. My father influenced my culinary development 100%. He and I have both very, very sensitive palates, and from a very young age, all of my memories of what I do with my family involve eating and drinking. My parents, had the opportunity to travel extensively with me, and from a very young age, I was in top restaurants, be it in Paris, be it in San Francisco, be it in wine country, be it in Italy, and my father was always telling me what everything was and forcing me to try not just what I ordered, but everything that's at the table. Having me smell and taste sauces or mushrooms or glasses of Merlot, telling me how to make a pasta in the fashion that is being presented by whatever kitchen we're sitting in. But then also he trained many people to cook, and I was always around him teaching other people how to cook, even my mother. I know basically all of my mother's recipes, and I know how she cooks, but they were all taught to her by my father. And growing up not just in a restaurant where we are constantly trying our own foods, and we are constantly riffing on the variations of the food that we are serving. The breadth of knowledge from doing that and being exposed to that, literally as long as I can remember, from 2 to 3 to 5 to 33 where I am now, has not given me an academic understanding of cuisine, which I have achieved personally through my own study, but an incredible breadth of experience with cuisine and with different cuisines. My mother is the complete inspiration of in my life about art. When I was born, my mother was finishing her master's in fine arts at UC San Diego. In the same way that my father brought me to restaurants and to tables and brought me into the kitchen to show me different foods and styles, my mother took me around the world, mostly Western Europe and California, to experience great art from a very young age, and going to both big museums, Louvre, Museum d'Orsay, going to the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco from a very young age, but also to many galleries and just seeing lots of smaller artists. Growing up in a community where my parents were heavily involved here in Sacramento, knowing a lot of local artists and gallery owners, and hanging out over the course of a weekend in art galleries was all given to me by my mother. She still makes art, and I've been with her through many different artistic transitions. I've been with my friends who are artists through many of their different artistic transitions. I would not qualify myself as a physical artist, as someone who paints or draws or does sculpture. But a lot of what I do in my work involves the creation of something that people are emotionally bound by. As far as different artists I appreciate, I think that I'm a professional appreciator of many things, and I think that the breadth of the things that I need to appreciate and the different artistic styles that I do appreciate are reflective of that, and in my experience. I grew up with a lot of Impressionism, a lot of Monet, a lot of Manet. I'm a huge Van Gogh fan. I have dreams of being in Amsterdam at the Van Gogh Museum for certain, even seeing things that I didn't see when I was there on those walls. I love the movement in Impressionism. I think that the nuance of changing a realism to something that is soft, that allows our visual system and our brain to play with a painting, allows for natural movement, and allows a painting's depth to become a part of its own reality. And that type of art itself, in its complexity, becomes alive in the mind in ways that I think present the most interesting characteristic about art. Now, I do really enjoy a lot of modern art. I appreciate Picasso, I appreciate Dali, I appreciate Pollock. I'm not a fan of Warhol, but I understand why we value him. I love Basquiat. Again, the works that these guys have presented, I still think have their roots in Impressionism, where the work that they put out is almost a program for our brains and our visual systems to take in and be affected by. And so for me, that is the most, that's my favorite thing about it. Okay, well, I think that the most important aspects of what we've done here are the two things that the guests aren't going to notice. What we have done in our design in order to play with light and in order to play with sound are the most important part of our aesthetic. Not only have we brought the double puck into the modern times, and we've done that by creating a canvas of hard shapes and materials, but we've done it in a fashion that plays with the way that the light moves, and also has allowed us to have extremely hard materials, which I think are very comforting because they're dense by nature, with extreme attention to sound dampening. And the way we've structured the ceilings, all of the drop soffits, the way that we've done woodwork with all of the small bevels and small cornered edges, the way we have played with circular design within a very structured linear grid has made it so the light can always be at the appropriate level of comfort, as well as the sound will always be at an appropriate level of comfort. We can be in a place, in a restaurant that's extremely busy, and the background din will never be overwhelming, and we'll always be able to have carry on a conversation with the people that we are with. And if the restaurant is not very busy, instead of having hollow echo, you have warmth. You feel surrounded by the light or the lack of light, depending on the time of day. More light during the day, waning light in the evening, but also the sound that is enveloped just in having less errant vibrations. Oh, I think it's fabulous. The best thing about being in Sacramento is we are at the crossroads and in the center of one of the world's most diverse breadbaskets. When it comes to the produce and meat and different things that are grown here locally and within our immediate region, you almost have an instance where all of the artists in town get the best paint to play with, and whether they're throwing it on the wall or they're doing it old school or they're really having a lot of fun with their plating, the basis quality of the ingredients that they get to play with are the best. Now, at the same time, I think that Sacramento as a culinary scene is one that's very humble. It's one that's very community oriented. I feel everybody knows everybody. And the sense of community is that we're all sort of in this together. And rather than being sort of a cutthroat competition of one-upmanship, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it this way, it's one that we all get to revel in our own thoughts. We get to go and see how Rabbit Patel is doing it across the street, and his take on things. We get to go see Brian Chetchi over at Canon, see his take on things. We get to see Jeanette Williams at Alora and his take on things. I get to go to Aioli and see what Rada and Pablo are up to. I get to come here and talk with Isaac and Christoph and get to do our own play on things. And when I have the people of the community going around, I see this mutual appreciation because there's a lot of respect there, and we all know that we are playing at such a high level. I've seen the Sacramento culinary scene grow up in the last 25 years, go from sad and almost non-existent to very fruitful, and I get excited when I go out to eat, which I don't feel Sacramento really had 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but now I get to go and be extremely excited about it. And I don't have to go to Napa Yono, I don't have to go to Berkeley and see how they did it in the 60s, and I don't have to go all the way to San Francisco to see what the new kids are coming up with, because we've got the new kids right here. And the reason I'm here in this town is because there's no better place to do this at this moment, in my opinion. I was told my mom that my goal in life was to drive a BMW and to own one of my grandfather's custom homes. I don't really care about the BMW any longer, but I really would love to own one of my grandfather's custom homes. As a restaurateur, I often say restaurateurs get bankruptcies, heart attacks, and divorces. And I would like to not have any of those in the next 20 years. I would like to see both my children enrolled in college. And I would like to see the community I've built in my restaurants flourish. I'd love to see what happens bringing another generation up in this industry after this one. And if we got to do a few more restaurants along the way, then we will. I'm really happy with the development that this restaurant has done. I think that the Brasserie Capitale has done exactly what it meant to do. It meant to be a flagship French restaurant within a burgeoning culinary scene in a growing metropolitan city. It has become a huge part of the community here in Sacramento, and it has done it in stride, well, and hasn't compromised its understanding or idea. We have only gotten better. Our food is only more fun. Our staff is only more knowledgeable. Our wine list is even getting better now. Being 3.5 years into this project, in this place, in this city, at this time, has made me feel very grateful to be a part of it. But there's a feeling that this restaurant has given me that it feels like it has been here a lot longer than it has. And it feels like it's going to be here for another eternity. It has given me a sense of permanence, and it could have only done that by expressing itself well.
Tic-tac, tic-tic, les oiseaux du lac pic-pac, pic-pic, glou 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 font tous les dindons, et la jolie cloche ding-ding-dong, mais boum, quand notre cœur fait boum, tout avec lui dit boum, et c'est l'amour qui s'éveille. Boum, il chante Loving Bloom, au rythme de ce boum qui redit boum à l'oreille. Tout a changé depuis.